Welcome back to Let the Story Write Itself. I'm Sarah, and this is episode 41. Have you ever chased a goal, achieved it, and then realized it didn't actually feel like a success? Today's episode, I am discussing redefining success on your own terms. So, I went to university at just after high school, mostly because I had an education fund saved for me. And I did not necessarily have like a clear path or direction. I never really considered a particular occupation. So I willy nilly kind of just applied and kind of went to university. One, because I had a fund to save for me. And secondly, I didn't really have a plan per se or clear direction otherwise. But immediately during orientation, um, it was like it was like August right before school was about to start. And I was still 17. And during the orientation, even though, it's like a lovely day, the campus is beautiful, there's objectively nothing particular that was wrong with it. There was like a sinking feeling in the pits of my stomach. That feeling where it's like something just feels off. And I remember this particular moment. I was sitting in one of the lecture rooms, one of the professors is kind of giving a bit of a talk, trying to like warm up the students to the whole university idea and such. And I was just like sitting in like one of those lecture halls, and I just felt so like empty and hollow inside. And I just felt like, I don't know, it's just like this feeling like I didn't really relate to anyone, even though I was like surrounded by my peers and such. And, there was an energy of like excitement and all that in the air. I did not was not feeling it. I was essentially just feeling a certain sense of coldness and just a feeling of like, like I'm not particularly I don't feel like I necessarily belong here. And so this was like my bodily wisdom essentially speaking to me. So I kind of knew that, had that feeling. And then as I was waiting for my mom to pick me up, I had this idea, go travel, right? And it was just kind of this feeling of, it was like a meh, like, I was almost just like resigned to just going to university, but I wasn't really in it. So essentially, I completed the degree. I went through university despite that gnawing feeling within that this isn't the right path. And that was mostly because I was, in a way, torn by the fact that, like, if you have a university degree, that is often considered like a form of success, that is a like a widely accepted form of like acknowledgement that, oh, you've completed something worthwhile or notable, or something that people will actually, in a way, respect, if that makes sense. And like it has a certain connotation with it. It's like it denotes, oh, you're smart. It denotes that you have the perseverance. It denotes that you are able to achieve a level of higher learning, whatnot, right? So these are all like certain measures of success that the external world validates. And the reason there's a discrepancy is because obviously from what I'm feeling from within, this feeling of not excited, not, you know, it's like I did not feel an intrinsic pull to it. So even when so say it's like May 2010, this is when I, graduated from university. I completed my classes, my exams. Now I'm just waiting for, I didn't even attend my graduation. That is how, like, I was just like so glad to be done with this phase. I was like, geez, Louise, like this was like I always say I was there in body but not in mind. And so it was kind of like this thing where it's like I was just going through the motions of it. I was not really fully in it. And I almost felt like I was doing it for the sake of appeasing whatever it was, whether it was like, oh, I had this fund saved for me from my parents. And so, well, I'm just going to do it because to appease them, or, the feeling that like, even when I talked it out with like some counselors, they would be like, my fear for you is that you don't finish your degree. I'm like, I have no worries about finishing the degree. My worries more like, am I even on the right path? So it was like this idea that many people would just talk you into completing it because of that very societal measure of like, this is what a degree connotates. And we all know that now. We know that a degree is not really worth that much in today's world. With the advent of AI and everything, this is something that you can feel in your bones. Like, I don't even have to know this at 17. It's kind of just like it's your intrinsic knowing and intrinsic it's just like an intrinsic intuition. It's like you don't have to know to it's like there's a certain built-in foreshadowing that your body can inherently know just by being of a certain generation and like what your generation is here to to live and to do and whatnot. I do know that is, it's not going to be the same as your parents' generation or whatever, because their world is different. Whatever they are here to live through is not the same. So sometimes it's very faulty how people try to apply what they live through to a different generation, right? It doesn't make sense. So I've always kind of had that feeling that like independence of thought and just feeling. I was always that person who never went to the dinner table just because there was a certain time or, okay, Sarah, come eat now. Dinner's ready. We're all here. La la la. I'm like, I'm not actually hungry. Like, I'm not coming to the table if I'm not actually hungry. So yet, and I would not eat dinner until I was actually felt hungry to eat. So like at home, I was always that independent like even as a kid into my teen years, it's like I would rarely like, I would never go to the table just to be like, "Oh, let's all have dinner together," or "Let's just all eat because it's a certain time." It's like I just could not force myself to do that. And so I often ate on my own time. I ate whenever I felt hungry, and plus that, it's like a lot of the conversation I didn't necessarily relate to with my own family members, right? I've always been a bit of the black sheep of my own family. So, in many ways, like I've always kind of walked my own path, walked to the beat of my own drum, so to speak. And so even though I had that inner feeling within that like university was not really my definition of success at all, like I didn't even attend my graduation. In fact, when my freaking degree came in the mail, I was more like pissed at it. I was more like had this feeling of like dread and resentment. Like, gosh, I felt like I wasted so much time in that 5 years that I was in university because I just I was not really there. Like I didn't even want to do it, right? I did not feel I definitely felt like I knew I was doing it almost for the fact that I was scared to walk away and be like, "What if?" And and then there was also the fact that because I didn't necessarily listen to that initial voice at 17 during the orientation, before they say it's like, what's that phrase? The longer you're on the train, the longer the return journey, you know what I mean? It's kinda like the more invested you in something you are, the more it feels like an opportunity cost to, like, walk away or even, like, the longer you stay in it, you're like, "Okay, well, I've already done 1 year of it." The next thing you know, you're in your 2nd year, and then you're like, "Well, I might as well just go to do the 3rd year." And the next thing you know, you're like, "Well, I'm almost done the degree, I might as well just finish it now," right? So it's like you keep compromising until the fact is that you've just kinda you've essentially ignored that voice and you're like, you know what? You're like justifying and then you're making all these various decisions that are not truly in alignment with yourself. So that inner voice at 17 at orientation that was like, go travel. And then I knew right away that I'm like, you know what? I'm not feeling this at all. I'm feeling a certain, like this sinking feeling at the pit of my stomach. Literally feel like I'm just not in the right place at the right time. And I felt that very clearly at 17. I've always had that sovereignty about me, like, whether it was like not even going to the dinner table just because, an arbitrary time is set and be like listen to my own instincts more than that. So in many ways I've always been the black sheep of my own family. So this really relates to the fact that success is very personal. It's not universal. Not everyone will have the exact same definition of success, and that's something to take actually, that's a very valid reason. Just because one person decides that something is a form of success, it does not necessarily mean that that applies to everyone. And there needs to like not be this universal definition that like, oh, when you complete a degree, this is what's deemed successful. Like whoever came up with that and almost touted that ideology, that somehow trickled down to my own experience where somehow I almost felt like broiled in to enrolling in university. Like, however that came about, when you're just going through childhood and at some point your mind is conditioned to almost like just follow the crowd and the masses and not even like, there's obviously some kind of indoctrination and conditioning that happens, like whether subtly or whatnot, that does impact how you make decisions, even from such a young age. So it's just quite fascinating just how vigilant you have to be. So, one of the things is really just to be quite real about what actually lights you up. And if you don't know, it's often better to do nothing than to do anything just for the sake of doing something. Like for me, I always say it would have been better for me to just sit at home doing nothing or being like just led by whatever I feel like I'm called to or I'm naturally interested in gravitate to without being like imposed upon, like, oh, you have a fun say for you, or this is what most people your peers go and do after university or after high school, or this is kind of like the general consensus about what success is to complete a degree, and you're like one of, it always you make it makes it seem like there's something really, you know, quite almost like a special status that like, okay, you're one of the people who are advantaged or privileged to actually go for higher learning. It's almost like given this certain status that I never really felt, but it's almost like this strange false sense of illusion of security that it's not actually, because what it really means is that you don't actually feel secure and safe in yourself. You're actually operating from a very base level of fear. So it's quite ironic, that idea that like feel secure, this certain illusion of certainty, when actually what's actually going on is that you're being disconnected from your own inner innate sense of security and certainty. So that's quite a manipulative, I think, aspect of that ideology, and why it can be quite dangerous touting that to an entire like to the majority of people. So this is about like resetting your goals and standards, even if it means starting over. And that's exactly how it felt to me when I completed the degree. I was like 22 at this point, right? Just completed a degree. And I'm like, you know what? I know exactly what it feels like to do what other people think I should do and like operate from that part. I'm like, you know what? I did the thing where, this is what the majority of people generally consider successful. And why the frick do I feel so awful? And like, I don't even want to look at this piece of paper. I don't even want to look at it because it actually almost like gets me angry. I'm like, the amount of time and energy that I put into this thing that was not even mine to begin with. Like, it was not my path at all. And I could feel that. Like, even if I speak about it right now, like, I can still feel that, like, that feeling of like, this is my time. This is my energy. This is my life. The fact that I almost like gave that power to someone else is what angers me at the heart of it, essentially. So at this point, I immediately, like, it was like May 2010. I just, completed my last exam, wrapped up whatever final assignment I had, pretty much completed university and just waiting for the degree to be official. And I called up the local university hospital that had a psychotherapy group program, and I pretty much enrolled myself. I'm like, hi, I need to enroll myself in the group psychotherapy, please. And of course, they ask you like questions and get to know like who you are, what your life circumstances are, la la la. And then the intake counselor says to me, I suggest you just go and apply for a job, you know, instead of what was it? It almost like it was like this idea that like I'm being uh ungrateful. I don't know, like almost like I'm complaining about something when I should really just be going and getting a job at this point. I'm like, no, that is the last thing I need to do. I need to reclaim myself and my personal sense of self, because you know, I kind of made a decision internally right then and there. I'm like, I'm not pursuing a career in something that I didn't even was not even my path to pursue in a sense. And so I was like, no, no, like I'm not looking to start a career in something that was not even, in the first place, intrinsically motivated. And so, the period after university is real. I really kind of came back to who I really am. It meant like I was starting over because I'm like, you know what? I never actually had a job before this. I never actually like did anything outside of the bubble of like school or home or being driven everywhere. So at this point, I started expanding my bubble. I started taking public transportation. I'm like, you know what? Screw the freaking whatever degree I just did. I'm going to go and just take whatever job sounds fun. Like, I'm going to try being a baker. I'm going to work in a greenhouse. I'm going to, do like, what the heck else did I did? Um, What did I do? Can't remember now. I tried like waitressing. I did that. I only lasted like one day. I I was like a telephone interviewer at one point. I did like yeah, I did some retail and like some sales jobs and then reception. Like I just did a whole bunch of different things in like different places that kind of like it's like I just crammed in like 16 different jobs within a period of like 2 years essentially and got like this like major life experience, like just outside the bubble of like going to school and stuff, and never having a job essentially, or ever really driving myself anywhere, or even taking public transport essentially. So at this point, I'm like, I need to just get back to who I am. And I also did a lot more volunteer activities. I enrolled in a lot more events and things like it's getting going out and about a lot more on my own. So I realized after that whole ordeal at university that other people's metrics was not the way. I did the thing, I completed the degree, and here I was back at square one. I'm like, I'm not pursuing a career in this. I am not continuing doing something just because someone else is telling me this is the way to do it. I'm like, I did that for 5 years and it was freaking literal, like it did not feel good. Not that there's anything objectively wrong on the surface, but inside it literally felt like I was going against my own inner compass and grain. And that was like 5 years of my life that I cannot get back right. What could I have been doing at that time? Starting my own business, traveling the world, you know, actually enjoying life and not like sitting in a classroom daydreaming, feeling like I belong anywhere else but here right now. So when I started to define success by my own values, I started moving according more to intuition, just exploring, trying new things for fun, that play, that joy, that creativity, even volunteering, joining like a Toastmasters, using my voice more, that psychotherapy program where I spoke more about personal experiences and authentic emotions, stories from my own life. And like that connected me more to this feeling of freedom and authenticity and being like that sense of growth. It's like I felt like I was more accomplished from the psychotherapy, from the Toastmasters, from the various employment I had than like simply completing a degree that I feel like did not even really expand or help me in any which way. And I've never actually used that degree, even as of now, 2025. What is it? 2025? Like how many years is that since I completed my degree, right? It's probably not even really relevant anymore. So this is what actually shifted my energy. And it's essentially what led to my solo travel because through this sovereignty, through this period of expansion where I said yes to my soul, to myself, through all the various fun like play and being driven by my own intrinsic desires or curiosity or sense of interest that led me to like it led me to the Vipassana that I did in 2012. And it led me to not being tethered to any one particular job or path, but constantly saying yes to myself. And that really was the journey underlying all this activities on the surface. It was that idea that like, you know what, I'm saying yes to myself continuously. I'm not just kind of being like, I'm committed to this one thing now for the rest of my life for as long, like, all these years or whatever. It's like I was always allowing myself to evolve and change and shift. And then I eventually shifted more into like, I even did like door to door sales because I got so like, I realized that I didn't really like being in a waged or salaried position where it was like a very, like a very routine, like there was no sense of growth that was like apparently an inherent value for me. And almost just like that self leadership where it's like, door to door sales suited me a lot more. Doing 12-hour plus days energized me more than like sitting around for 7 hours doing essentially what I felt like was not helping me grow at all. So these are the ways that I evolved over time, that by 2015, 2016, when that voice within me came again and it told me, go to Toronto. It was like that same voice that at 17 said, go travel, except this time it was like a very specific place. But I finally said yes to it, even though it was unknown to me, even though I had no logical reason to follow its prompts. I listened to that voice within because I was now so much more connected to the feeling of it, that feeling of choosing my joy, that play, that curiosity, that fun, that trust in the unknown. And that is essentially me a decade later from being 17 as my more sovereign self, the self that is able to say yes to the unknown, to the adventure, to something that feels like leaning in on my own knowing and my own definition of success more than what the external world might consider. Success isn't about appearances, it's about alignment. When you define success for yourself, you start running the right race essentially. Because I made choices that felt meaningful to me and not just impressive on paper. So, some takeaways from this episode are: define success for yourself, decide on your own definition of success, listen to your own inner voice, audit what are your current goals, what in fact are the goals that actually come from intrinsic reasons and not just what actually are others' expectations. Really differentiate between the two. Commit to that alignment. Choose something that stems from your own inner pull or intrinsic curiosity rather than something that you logically think, instead of choosing the logical, rational way that comes from your mind, choose to tune into your heart and intuition and inner knowing. And then just essentially check in with yourself on a regular basis. You know, constantly reflect and reassess. Like, are you actually operating from your intuitive, intrinsically led sense of what actually pulls you in life, or is there something creeping in that you're doing just for the sake of doing, but you're not actually fully there in it? So these are the takeaways from this episode of Let the Story Write Itself: redefining success on your own terms.